This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back, everyone. When I say this word, you, I'm sure, have a picture that comes up in your mind. The word is doula. For me, the first thing I think of is somebody that helps birth a baby. You get a doula. You can even have one in a hospital if you so choose. Well, did you ever know that doula is also connected to end of life? There are end of life doulas. There's a lot to be considered there in terms of charting those waters as the final chapter is coming along for you or a loved one. The guidance, the compassion, the support, that's all there. It's beautiful when you think about it. And even the end of life process is beautiful when you really look at it in a different way. Sally Gabriel joins us here on the program today. This is what she does and so much more. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Steve.
I don't think I've ever done a podcast with an end of life doula. I've done podcasts with baby doulas, birthing doulas. So this is very unique. But when you really think about it, and be intentional just for a moment. What's going on there? Most of us unfamiliar with it, whether we're close to end of life or somebody in our world is close to end of life. The things that maybe you need to consider, the knowledge that comes along with that, the guidance and support. What are some of the things that you hear from, Sally, when you work with people that they didn't realize they needed to know when it's approaching the final chapter?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that the doula movement, the death doula movement, does come, of course, from the birth doula movement. And it's relatively new. It's been around maybe 10 plus years, it's not that old. And so people haven't heard of death doulas. A lot of people have never heard of it. We provide non-medical support, so emotional, logistical, spiritual support to families, people who are dying and their families. What we hear a lot of times when someone either is getting close to the end of life, they have a terminal illness, often that's when they'll call us. Or if somebody wants to do advanced care planning, and that's a big part of our work, is planning for the end of life. Anyone over 18 should have a plan. And when I talk about advanced care planning, I'm talking about a living will and a healthcare surrogacy. I'm not talking about a legal. That's not a legal process. And I think the planning process, as well as planning for what you actually want when you're dying, when you're on your deathbed, we call that active dying. And it's hard. It's hard for people. I hear often people don't want to talk about it because they're anxious. It makes them feel anxious. They want to avoid the subject. So often it's just talking to people about death, starting to have these conversations like, oh, we can talk about this. It's not really that scary. We can start to talk about it.
When can or somebody call upon you? Is it even that it's not even in the future of a passing being imminent, but as you say, there's a lot of things to plan for.
Yes, I really like the idea of people calling us early before one has a terminal illness, because when we have the shock of getting an illness or having a life-limiting disease, we're not going to think as clearly as we would say at 45, 55, 65, when we're hopefully healthy, and then we do our planning. Now we can, and of course we want to amend it. We continue to amend it, but the original planning can be done anytime, like I said, over 18.
Gotcha. Okay. So I guess we're looking at this two ways. The advanced planning, basically to get your affairs in order and, but your final wishes, all of that, whether they're medical or logistical or even, financial, whatever that is. Right. Then there's also when a passing is imminent within a period of time, you can look at both sides of those things. When would somebody call you closer to end of life? I mean,
and that's a great question. The ideal time for someone to call us is when they get a terminal diagnosis or a diagnosis of a life-limiting illness. So someone gets diagnosed with cancer. Ideally, they call a doula at that point. They don't often think to do that because, again, there's that shock phase where they're like, oh my God, what do I do now? But we can begin, the sooner we can begin working with a family and with a person who has a terminal illness, the better we get established because we provide not only the planning, but also support. People need emotional support. They get medical support, but they need emotional support, and they generally don't have that. And also to talk to somebody who's familiar with the process. A lot of people aren't familiar with the dying process. What's it really like? What's it like to die? Now, again, I haven't died, but I have seen many people go through this process. So it's a calming presence at the bedside. Now, when people don't call us, they don't always call us when there's a terminal illness. They'll call us later in the process. So we have to, we do catch up. We make sure that the planning's been done and we talk to them about what they're dealing with. We also can do a life review, a legacy project. How do they want to be remembered?
Hmm.
A lot of times people at the end of their life, they want to talk about their lives. So we learn to, how to question people, how to listen and get information from them that's valuable.
In this, you have a PhD. You're a certified end-of-life doula and certified grief educator. This is very unique. Where did this start for you, Sally? How did you come to this juncture where you're helping people with navigate their end of life?
Yeah, I didn't come to this early in my life. I was working for many years as a banker. I've done many different things. I've been a nutritionist, a coach. I'm also a coach. And then in 2017, both of my parents died. They died a month apart in the spring. And my mother was in New York. She was in a hospital. My father was in Florida in a nursing home, for skilled nursing facility. And I did not have a good experience with either one. And I really didn't know anything. I wish I'd had a doula. I didn't know anything. I hadn't been that close to anybody dying. After that, a couple of years later, I took care of a friend of mine. She had a life-limiting illness. She asked me to help her, and I acted as a doula without knowing what it was. And that was a completely different experience. She planned everything. She was very open. She was very comfortable with the fact that she was dying, and she really educated me. After that, I started volunteering at hospice, which is what a lot of people, a lot of us do. We volunteer at hospice. We get familiar with death and dying. And then they were able to send me to some training, and then I got further training on my own. So I've been doing this I'm on my fifth year now
Wow.
of working as a doula. I also volunteer with a hospice.
That has to be so rewarding, so touching that you are there to help people with this because I can't even imagine. And it takes a strong individual, I would imagine, too, for you to do this, Sally.
I appreciate you saying that, Steve. For many of us that do this work, it's a calling. And we have a collective. I live in Sarasota, Florida right now, and we formed a collective of doulas. And we're all very dedicated to this profession. We want people to know about it because it does make a difference. People call hospice, they have hospice, but it makes a difference because we fill in some of those gaps that the medical profession cannot provide. It's very rewarding work. It's difficult work because, again, we're really immersed. We're very intimate. Death is a very intimate experience. Going through that with someone, their barriers are all down. You really get to see the person and they let you in and they have to trust you. So you have to develop trust. You have to be able to listen. They're not always they don't talk to everybody. So you really have to be able to get in there and listen. So yes, it's rewarding and it's not for everyone. I tell people I'm a death doula and they go, "What?" So yeah, it is a calling.
Do you choose to look at this as a celebration of life as opposed to end of life? I'll just state it that way.
I like the question. I personally try to be there for whatever the client wants. So we don't go in with an agenda as a doula. If my client wants to see it that way and the family sees it as like a celebration of life, then that's where I am. If they see it as a sad, difficult period of time, I'm going to be there. Now, again, I'm going to be that calm presence at the bedside. So personally, I see it as a very sacred time. It's a very special time. And there's also a sadness to it because we're losing a person and there's a lot of grief. You feel it. There's a lot of grief. So I don't want to deny that. I think it's both. I think I try to see it as both.
You personally, how do you find the strength or some belief that everything is energy, and when you work with somebody, even at a job, doesn't even matter, you might take on their energy. You know, let's say they're having a bad day. Now you're feeling it. You know, I got to believe you're a massive empath. I don't think you'd be doing this. How do you cleanse yourself? There's a lot on your shoulders. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, that's a good, insightful question.
Because I'm an empath, damn it.
Exactly. You understand.
It's actually proven. I've taken tests before, and it actually kind of surprised me that was way higher than I ever thought.
Yeah, and all of us that do this work are also like that. Yeah. One of the things you learn in training very early on is boundaries. And you do learn how to, if you take on someone's energy, which you do, how to dissipate it when you're done.
Sure.
So, you know, what I do personally, you know, when after I work with someone, it's a heavy experience. I really have to I do a lot of exercise. I sometimes take a nap. You know, I have my own ways of, quote, self-care. We have to be good at self-care in order to do this work. And I think also realizing just what you said, being aware of when we're very much involved with this family and how to step back. So even before going into the room or to the house, we like take a breath. Same thing when we come out. It's almost like, oh, we have to get the energy off us. So I think that awareness of what we're doing and how to back away from it is very important. It's not 100%.
Oh, totally. And every day is different.
Every family is different.
Every family is, and you have to meet them where they are. As you said before, yes. Some maybe this is, you know, a positive situation. It's sad, of course it is, but they may be looking at it through a different lens, whereby you may have another family where this was a complete shock or whatever, and it's weighing on them in a different way. What are some suggestions? And the first word that comes to my mind is peace. That we want that family to feel that comfort and peace. It's a very emotional, I'm going to say crazy times with medical doctors, all of this, everything going on here, plans and all of that. What's your suggestion? Maybe the top 3 suggestions for, I'll call it a peaceful transition.
First suggestion is plan. When things are planned ahead of time, or even, you know, months, weeks, doesn't even have to be years ahead, the planning makes such a difference because people have something to follow. You know, I work with somebody and we have a vigil plan. Vigil is that time at the end when somebody's actively dying. You know, what do they want? What do they want their bedroom to look like? What do they want do they want music? All of these little details that are so important at the end of life. So if things are planned, the family is calmer. They know what to expect. Education is the second one. Again, knowing what to expect. Many people have never sat with anybody. You know, I hadn't sat with anybody dying until my parents were dying. I didn't know what to expect. So I think having somebody there to say, no, when the breathing gets like this is completely normal. It's nothing wrong. To explain that death is a natural process. It's not a medical event. It's a natural process. So education. And then the idea of peace, like you mentioned, you know, for people to have their own way of accepting. If we can get to some acceptance, and family members are all different. You know, one person might be completely like, it's fine that my father's dying, and the other person is freaked out. So it all depends on the person. But we try to get them to see this as a natural process and not some crazy medical event.
You've witnessed quite a few people pass on.
I have.
How do you describe that? Is there a common denominator that maybe that was a surprise to you?
I've seen people pass on, and in 99% of the cases, the person is very peaceful. And again, these are people that are using hospice. I haven't been with anybody who hasn't had some kind of medical pain relief. I think a lot of the fears that people have is that they're going to be in terrible pain. And today, pain can be managed almost 99% of the time.
Hmm.
So it's peaceful. People go into a sleep coma and they very peacefully pass away. They have their last breath. And that's surprising to me. It was surprising because I didn't know. The other thing that I find important is sitting with somebody at the end. It's so peaceful. It's quiet. There's kind of can be a sacredness in the room if you look for it. That surprised me also.
Hmm. There's something to be said about that word peace. If you don't have it, you don't know it. But when you finally find it, and I don't mean about peaceful last moments, I'm talking about peace in general. You realize I didn't have peace in my life until you found it. It's like, oh, that's what that peace is. It's not about materialistic things. It's not about this, that, or the other. It's just a calm feeling. And I get that from what you do. You're very calming, reassuring, and your compassion shines through. And this is probably one of the hardest jobs I think anybody could do, short of being in the medical community, at that moment,
Right.
at the final moments of somebody's life. Was it when you started doing this, Sally, was it challenging for you? Or did you step right into it? Like, okay,
It felt a calling. The thing I didn't have was the education.
sure.
I had to get educated. We have to understand things. So by taking classes, that's how I learn. Of course, is taking classes and then volunteering so that I got some experience. But I did. I stepped into this much more easily than I did in many other professions. I feel like I found my favorite profession kind of at the end of my working life. And this is true. Many of us do find this work later on in life. It might not be something, I do run into some doulas that are very young, but it may not be something younger people really are attracted to, death
Mm.
work. Some are, but it's rarer. I think coming to it with some experience, some other work experience, maybe like you said, some self-analysis. I think we have to be very comfortable. You definitely have to be comfortable with the fact that I'm going to die and with talking about death in general in order to do this work. We have to be comfortable. I also think if we can help families accept what's happening, a lot of what you said about not being peaceful is resistance to it. We resist the fact that we're going to die, but
Mm.
we are. And so when it is actually happening, we're resisting it. If we can, people can learn to just let go and accept that this is what's happening, it's very different. It makes for a different experience.
You personally, deep question, are you afraid to die? And or were you until you stepped into this role?
Theoretically, I'm not. However, I had a medical scare a while ago, maybe a couple of months ago. Thank goodness it wasn't anything. But I noticed myself. I noticed how frightened I got. And that was an interesting thing to see. So I am guessing we can all sit here and talk about it. But when the time comes,
Right.
when we have a scary diagnosis, we are all afraid. And I think that's normal. I think that's completely normal. Fear of death is normal. Animals have it. We all have it. So I'm not, no, yes, I am fearful of it. Yes.
Well, we all have a fear of the unknown. We're wired to not change because it's safe. We always want to do the same thing. I want to stay safe. So
Right.
this is, but you could say, yeah, I'm not afraid to die. When that moment might confront you with a health scare, now you're
Yeah.
faced with the unknown. Well, what's it going to be like? What am I going to feel like? What the thoughts I'm going to have? My family, all of that. Yeah, it could be swirling around in your head at that moment. You won't know until you're there, but I hear you.
Death anxiety is a real thing. And people come to me to talk about it. And I think the more we talk about it, as kind of any anxiety, we talk about it, we pull it apart, and we see, yeah, that's anxiety, and it's okay. It's okay to live with it. We don't want to be crippled by it, but yes, we're all going to have some of that.
Can you work with anybody anywhere?
I can do any of the planning I can do remotely. When someone's actually dying, I haven't worked remotely with anyone. I certainly can do it if there's a caregiver who can step in as the doula. But generally, the doula work is done in person. All of the grief work, other after loss support, a lot of that can be done remotely. But the actual end of life, for me, I need to be there.
And in being there, does that mean your job, as you see it, and I guess it's up to the family too, is to be there at that last moment, at least in the room, at least support?
And I've done it different ways. So yes, sometimes it is to be there with the family, and sometimes the family doesn't want you there because again, it's so intimate. But what I'm starting to do now is train somebody in the family who seems to be a little more accepting how to do the doula work at the end of life. So that person can step in and actually provide that. And I can provide support, say remotely on the phone or anything like that. I can provide support that way. And that seems to be, I'm going to start training people to do that.
Yeah, amazing. Best way to find you. And you're in the Sarasota area, you mentioned. What's your geographic span in terms of helping people?
Yeah, so in terms of the doula work, we work in 3 counties. I'm part of a collective, Sarasota, Manatee, and Charlotte counties. That's in person, but remotely I can work anywhere.
Gotcha. What's the best way to find you, Sally?
I have a website and it's called Epilogue Care, EPILOGUECARE.com. That's the best way to find me.
Wonderful talking with you. I mean, I love what you do. It takes a special person. You are that person. We all have a calling. You found yours. There's no doubt. I'm thinking next time we get together, maybe talk about grief support, maybe the afterlife support.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today.
So much.
Yeah,
Thanks.
really appreciate it.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.